talking about the specter of a series of Rock Slide flinches, but perhaps no matchup where it's more likely for this one.
And here we go, heading into turn one here. It is the King Gambit alongside the Charizard for Gio. And yeah, it is going to be the Floette mode for Brendan alongside the Mousehold to offer immediate support to that Pokemon in the form of Follow Me and the Friend Guard.
Yeah, I think this lead makes a lot of sense for both players here, where not a whole lot of options on Brendan's side of the field, but like we expected, like, well, you can't really pick Delphox here, so it has to be the Floette mode. And conversely, Gio also knows that. It's like, well, I'm not afraid of your Delphox, so I'm going to bring up Charizard immediately. Threatens a lot of damage to that Floette, even through some potential redirection. And then a King Gambit, despite you're facing now two Megas that deal pretty good damage to it, actually not that threatened here just because, well, you know, I know whatever Mega that Brendan picks, he's going to want to try to ramp it up with stat boosting moves. So a King Gambit can keep plowing away here. I think most likely in this first turn, it's just going to be aiming to remove the Focus Sash from, not the Focus Sash, but finish off the Mousehold probably, who's likely not to be one-hit KO'd. But instead switching.
Yeah, it's actually going to switch out for the Aerodactyl. So Gio now raising the specter of those Rock Slides, as well as the potential ability to set a Tailwind should Gio need to outspeed this Floette. Sometimes the Charizards are not as fast as the Floette, so Floette may be able to get some advantages here, but double Mega Evolutions here on turn one from both players. Gio going to Mega Evolve the Charizard, indicating that he is going on the offensive here, getting the full power of that Drought, while Floette boosts its own power with the Fairy Aura. And of course, exactly what you expect out of one of these teams. Mousehold is redirecting all damage. Floette gets a Calm Mind, is in fact faster than the Charizard, so gets this Calm Mind up before Charizard is able to deal damage, means he gets to resist this Heat Wave quite handily with that Calm Mind boost and the Mousehold to provide that Friend Guard support.
Yeah, so pretty expected turn for both sides. I think a nice little switch from these Aerodactyl. You know, getting it out in the field relatively for free. Going to be able to potentially to move first here. Pretty close to the point at which Rock Slide will be right at the edge of knocking out Mousehold or not. So if it's still the same way that Sajan's version of a team is trained, Gio may know this calc. It's kind of one disadvantage of using a known team is that you know, Zheng, a little bit famous as the Pachirisu trainer of Legend. Probably everyone aware of that team. So let's see the strategy here. Helping hand with Mousehold, so expecting to be knocked out before it's able to move.
Yeah, Helping Hand actually an adaptation that Brendan has made here instead of Super Fang on that Mousehold. A couple of adaptations actually on Brendan's team that might change the way that this plays against a player like Gio, who may expect the more classic version. Heat Wave will pick up the KO onto Mousehold and deal a little bit of damage to the Floette as the Draining Kiss comes through onto Aerodactyl, and even with a Helping Hand and a +1 Calm Mind is not enough to pick up the KO. That means that Aerodactyl survives for a turn here and is going to be able to threaten some Rock Slides.
Yeah, so now we get this awkward situation. Cischke going to come on the field. Not actually going to get anything out of Hospitality because Floette has healed itself up anyway. A little bit more HP. Maybe knowing that count, maybe hoping on Brendan's side that, you know, Moonblast would have been better, but hey, here you are. Not too big of a deal. Still threatening that redirection. Conversely, the Aerodactyl on the other side now, in a different matchup would actually be kind of in a weak spot here because, like, oh, you could just Dazzling Gleam, but again, no Dazzling Gleam in this Floette, so an awkward spot here where Floette's going to have to pick a target to knock out here, allowing the other one to continue attacking because both of the Pokemon Geo side of the field are going to move first after that Tailwind.
Yeah, and especially with without having the Dazzling Gleam, this Aerodactyl no longer has to play guessing games with the Wide Guard. Instead, just knows that it can go on the offensive here, double up, or switch out to potentially set up a Tailwind later on in this game. Gambit now out on the field in favor of the Aerodactyl as Sinistcha tries to protect itself from a Heat Wave or a Weather Ball coming out from Charizard. Does dodge the Heat Wave here with the Protect. That will connect onto the Floette, however, which with that Calm Mind, no Friend Guard this time, so it deals a good amount of damage more, but that Draining Kiss just going to keep sucking the life force out of Gio's Pokemon here.
Yeah, so both sides kind of really focused on one half of the battlefield where, in Floette's case, typically the way you play this matchup is you kind of just slowly Draining Kiss everything down and then start firing Moonblast into Charizard, right? It's a Pokemon that only has special attack, so Floette's really good in the 1v1, especially since usually by that point in the battle, the Sun has also expired. Other side of the field, certainly Sinistcha less excited about battling this Charizard, trying to stall out things as long as it can. And also another thing that keeps that low HP Aerodactyl valuable, not only can it potentially get a Tailwind later, but either being an option to cycle the Charizard out, so you can reset the sun maybe, or just kind of bring it into a position where, you waste another attack from that Floette. But I'm also not too upset if I'm on Brendan's side of the field either, where that Draining Kiss makes it much less likely that you're ever going to get hit by an Iron Head from that King Gambit, which would basically be game ending.
When it's at the Vivillon in the back for Brendan, that is a Pokemon that may just be sacrificed to protect Cischke for a turn here, as Heat Wave comes out again from the Charizard into the Protect onto Floette, will land onto the Vivillon and take out a one-hit KO. Easy KO there for the Charizard. This is what that Pokemon does. If you are weak to Fire-type damage, you are going to get knocked out. But now Brendan is able to bring in the Cischke once again and have the third redirector on the field to potentially protect this Floette as waiting for this Tailwind to expire.
Yeah, kind of an awkward spot here where, again, Aerodactyl is still in the back, so there's not like a super clear means of avoiding getting back into the situation. But at least for now, redirection is being threatened. Heat Wave, worst can miss. That would be pretty impactful in this matchup. But Brendan just isn't making enough progress, right? Down to one redirector who is likely going to go down to a single Heat Wave if it happens, because one of the costs of running that Hospitality ability is there's no heat proof here. And at that point, things are really looking tough for this Floette, who can only attack a single target. Has to Rage Powder this time because Protect was burned on the previous turn.
Well, Cischke Rage Powdering here, gets the Weather Ball, so Charizard going for full offense into Cischke, picks up the one-hit KO. Like I mentioned, Cischke weak to Fire-type damage. Charizard takes those every time. And now Iron Head from the King Gambit, actually faster than the Floette in the Tailwind, brings it all the way down to 19 hit points and gets a flinch. Floette would have been able to heal up a little bit of that health with a Draining Kiss, but King Gambit getting that Iron Head off probably sealed the deal for Brendan regardless.
Yeah, should be super over here. We know Charizard's faster, so I think he able to likely pick up a knockout there. But I don't know if that was... I don't know how much the flinch mattered, right? Where at least maybe it would have been enough that Brendan could continue playing the game, maybe hope for a miss or something. But eventually, Charizard Aerodactyl would come back out and set up the same situation. It's a dominant first game by Giovanni, and now on Brendan's side of the field, you got to try to think through, like, okay, is there some way I could have avoided this? Where I think on Giovanni's side of the field, I think all the switching is really impressive there, right? Where he's like, wow, you had opportunities to swing, but he knew what his win condition was. Both players were kind of playing like they expected the King Gambit to be quicker than the Floette and the Tailwind. I think that, to me, would have been an open question based on both Pokemon training. Sometimes the Floette on this sort of team are trained to be speedy and then strong in the defensive stats, but with very little special attack. Usually modest from the nature, and then that's enough. But in this case, the King Gambit likely that on Giovanni's side of the field trained to be with little speed, I would assume, because it needs a little help to get to that point. But that makes this matchup much worse for Brendan.
Much harder.
Where, I think there's not really a way to stop Tailwind. Sort of the nature of this sort of team is that you don't disrupt what your opponent does, they disrupt what you do. But not being able to just kind of like wither the attack from Giovanni makes it seem like this might just be a matchup that Brendan perhaps can't win.
Well, the way that you disrupt Tailwind with this team is through Vivillon's Sleep Powder, which of course has 98% accuracy, would outspeed the Aerodactyl because it's holding the Choice Scarf. But Brendan having that Pokemon in the back. Of course, Gio also didn't lead the Aerodactyl, but having the ability to shut down Tailwind does seem really big for Brendan. Yeah,
I kind of wonder if maybe that's why Giovanni opted to lead the King Gambit the first game, because you cover for that option. Right? I was like, okay, well, you can put my Charizard to sleep if you want, but then I'm going to get a free Iron Head and Floette, and like that's also pretty bad. It's not necessarily game losing, because then you go for a Sleep Powder again the next turn on King Gambit while you calm on with Floette or something, and then try to heal back up with Draining Kiss. But it's like one quick wake up away from just throwing the game if you go that path. So I think that's pretty rough too. I think Gio's line into this is just like really good.
Yeah, and especially that Aerodactyl being able to survive a +1 Helping Hand boosted Draining Kiss. Huge for Gio, even if he loses control in the mid game, to be able to have that option to bring it back out in the end game. And here it is, just a rerun of game one, but now with a little bit more information for both players, Maushold and Floette for Brendan, and King Gambit and Charizard for Gio.
Yeah, sort of a scary run back from Brendan. Sometimes when we see players go for the same thing after they lose a game one, it's like, okay, like I made a decision here that was wrong, or like there was some bad RNG or something. I don't necessarily see what Brendan does differently to change this up here. So here's what he has in mind. I think maybe try to take some risks where I think the safe path didn't work. So okay, how can we roll the dice and try to get something a little bit unlikely to occur, because that just didn't work out the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there are options here. I mean, Brendan did spend some time going for setup, which helped Floette in the 1v1 against the Charizard, but not being able to pick up the KO onto Aerodactyl and not being able to deal enough damage to that King Gambit, there maybe is a world where you just go for straight off offense from the jump here.
Yeah, I think maybe you have to, right? Where you maybe hope to catch a Pokemon to switch, which is not going to happen here, it looks like. Or
yeah, King Gambit stays in. Yeah, that's going to be the Mega Evolution from Charizard here. Sets up the Sun, so Gio again going to go on the offensive here on turn 1. Matched by Brendan with the Mega Evolution on the Eternal Flower Floette. Also going to go ahead and get a boost to its stats here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of wondering, too, if I guess we're going to see the help again. So he's going for the offense, maybe hoping to catch Aerodactyl.
Yeah, full offense from the jump, hoping to catch that Aerodactyl, but instead this Moonblast is just going to connect on to King Gambit. That is enough to pick up the KO. The Moonblast with the helping hand picks up that KO. That is a huge threat off the board. However, this Heat Wave now will connect onto Floette that does not have the boost from Calm Mind. That being said, Friendguard doing a lot of work there to keep Floette fairly healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it still isn't like awesome for Brendan, but you can see the path now, right? Other than Aerodactyl is potentially primarily special attackers left at the other side. Like, as we mentioned before, Floette versus Charizard is usually a win for the Floette, right? It can be low enough HP that it doesn't work, but something that looks like there's a real chance. We'll have to see if the Aerodactyl, again, goes for a Tailwind immediately. So a Heat Wave would pick up the Mousehold here, so you don't like really need to attack with the Aerodactyl. But hey, you know, at least it seems like there's a chance this time. If Floette goes for a Calm Mind here as well, it should survive kind of no matter what happens. And then Cischke's Hospitality, assuming it's the back, would actually do something this time. But instead of the Incineroar as a switch up, I really like this. King Gambit now gone, so you have to worry about Defiant. Intimidate going to help against the Aerodactyl, and it's going to take attacks from Charizard pretty well. So Incineroar looking pretty good in this matchup.
Yeah, Incineroar with that King Gambit sniped on turn 1 is definitely looking like it's in a strong position here. It's going to tank this Heat Wave like nobody's business and immediately threaten Fake Out pressure. Plus, you get that Intimidate down onto the Aerodactyl, helping to protect that Floette a little bit more. So, opportunity to potentially start setting up, or just go for the recovery with Draining Kiss. You know it's going to be a 2-hit KO at least into that Aerodactyl.
Yeah, I love this for Brendan's side of the field. I mean, it's still like, it's a tough situation, but this is really interesting for a lot of reasons. Again, having King Gambit down is huge. It makes it easier to cycle this Incineroar, and we saw how difficult it was for Brendan to stall Tailwind out the previous game, but Incineroar may be the best Pokemon in the game at that, right? You know, it's why it's previously had such high usage. Intimidate's big here. The Fake Out is potentially big here, where, you know, allows Floette to get some more free action to try to Calm Mind. The Rock Slide is going to go down, though, and damage is not so great, but if it stops an action from Floette, it would be huge.
Yeah, the flinch chance is going to be huge onto the Floette. Charizard flinching from the Fake Out and the Rock Slide. 27% of the time, it works every time. Floette does not get to move this turn, and that's devastating for Brendan.
Yeah, it's tough. He's done a better job of slowing Giovanni down, but hey, still 2 more turns of that Tailwind to deal with, as well as 2 more turns of that Sun, and critically, there's no Calm Mind in this Floette. You know, where previously it was taking attacks from that Charizard pretty well. Charizard is quicker than it because of the Tailwind and threatening a lot of damage, so perhaps just a Protect and a switch into the Cischke to try to get some HP back, and then we do the whole thing again the next turn, maybe with Incineroar coming back.
Yep, we sacrifice Cischke here, most likely on Brendan's side. Floette will have to tank both this Rock Slide and the Heat Wave, though. No Protect came through. Went for the prediction there to assume that Floette would be able to survive this turn without having to go for the Protect, and gets paid off for it. Weather Ball connects onto Cischke, picks up the KO. Floette is able to go on the offensive this time. Moonblast onto the Aerodactyl. Not enough to pick up the KO. Basically, so here's what I just learned, is Moonblast at +0 is the same as Draining Kiss +1 with Helping Hand.
Yeah, and that's why you use that Moonblast, right, where the damage from Draining Kiss, a little underwhelming. Because of how low Aerodactyl was before, I was kind of wondering if we might see a Fake Out into the Aerodactyl slot, just because the damage could actually matter for once. It was not just the flinch effect. I don't think 17 HP with a Resist because of the Rock type, no matter how frail Aerodactyl tends to be, is going to be enough. 2 Fake Outs probably is, though, which no longer looks super realistic, but could matter if we get to a Game 3. But hey, Fake Out here threatening to stop one of Giovanni's Pokemon from acting, and we do have to note, too, that Field Effects are about to expire, both the Sun and the Tailwind. So if Floette can get to a position where it's looking a little bit safer after this turn, you know, maybe, but unless you attack the Aerodactyl slot and it stays unprotected, there's going to be another Tailwind, so Brendan going to have to prepare for that likelihood.
Brendan also has to be worried about what the fourth Pokemon is that Gio has brought. We have not seen that. We did not see that in Game 1, and there are plenty of threatening options there. Either the Garchomp or the Basculegion could be really threatening. Instead, Gio is going to just continue to fish for flinches here with that double intimidated Aerodactyl. Floette dodges the Heat Wave. That's huge for Brendan. That opens up an opportunity, and Incineroar survives at 14 health. After 2 intimidates down onto the Aerodactyl and the resistance on the Heat Wave, Floette is now finally able to get a calm mind up, and Brendan is starting to find a way back into this game. Throat Chop will finish off that Aerodactyl to prevent Gio from being able to set up a second Tailwind.
Yeah, great read by Brendan there. Kind of realizing, okay, well, Fake Out doesn't do that much for me here. I need to get rid of this Aerodactyl because another Tailwind is probably not something I can deal with, how weakened my team is. Gets a big knockup there. Going to be difficult to maneuver out of this one, however. Basculegion, that final Pokemon that Ed was mentioning in the back. No Sun, but Basculegion's not going to be too upset about that. It's going to make its Water-type attacks a little bit more powerful, but critically just in a situation here now where it's pretty devastating. We've seen that it's that Focus Sash item on the Basculegion, so it doesn't have to lock into a single move here, which otherwise would be pretty strong. And yeah, this is just going to be a tough position. It has the Aqua Jet to, if it needed to, just to pick up a quick knockout here. Although with Sash, I guess you don't have to. And it's a tough spot for Brendan. These Pokemon on Giovanni's side still very healthy, right? And even without the Sun effect, it's going to do a lot of damage if Charizard is able to swing away. Presumably Mousehold's still low enough, a Heat Wave would knock it out. Floette probably not, but getting put into range for an Aqua Jet would be just as bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see Brendan is trying to protect this Floette by switching in the Mousehold. With no Tailwind, that means that Floette is able to move first and get the Draining Kiss off onto Basculegion, healing all the way back up to full. Here's the Heat Wave from Charizard. Without the Sun, is able to pick up the KO onto Mousehold, heal a little bit to Floette, but now Friend Guard is off the field from Mousehold going down, and Basculegion is able to fire off a huge last respects. And look, this Pokemon's 50% usage for a reason.
Yeah, it's just that good, right? And that's with only 2 of its teammates knocked out. Last respects gets stronger every time a teammate is knocked out. And Brendan maybe a little cheeky there going for the attack rather than the protect, but I just don't know what realistically he could have done there, where could have a position where Heat Wave was threatening both of the Pokemon that could have been in the partner slot there.